attempting to cure his body without curing his mind is literally insane. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the effects of Emunah on healing, and we're going to talk about the emotions. We have a very big class with a lot of subjects. So why ER? Why specifically ER? Why are we picking this specific month to talk about healing? It's because this is the month where the man started coming down. We know a lot of the people get sick because unfortunately there's a lot of intestinal problems. Now we know obesity is tied to over 60 different problems nowadays. So we know that when the man came down, there was no GMOs in the man. There was no GMOs, there was no artificial, nothing was artificial when the man came down. So ER is a time for healing. ER also stands for Ani Hashem Rafecha. So this month is specifically tailored for healing. That's why this month, healing sometimes comes with a little bitterness. We're going to talk about the bitterness and the healing. It's all literally relative. Okay? So again, the key to healing really is the mind frame, which we're going to talk about. We have amazing sources. And the first key is obviously prevention. What's the first way to get healed? Rabbi Rambam says it very clearly. The key is prevention. Right? First you got to get your in-laws out of your house. That's the first way to get healing. Second is really your beliefs. The first question people ask me, when I ask them when they have a situation, I ask them one simple question. How is your view of life? Is life a challenge to you, or is life a threat to you? If the answer, life is a threat to you, then there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. Because if you think you're living in Gaza, I can't tell you to calm down. You're not living in Gaza. You're living in Aventura, you're living in New York, but if you think you're living in Gaza, that any little thing that happens is going to scare the you-know-what out of you, how could you be healed, and how could you be calm, and how could you not have anxiety? It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. But yet people view things like they're living in Gaza. And I don't understand why. So anxious people are always focused on things they can't control. And that unfortunately takes a toll on the system. And anxiety is very common now because when a person sees life as a threat, then anything that happens to him is going to be a threat. And he thinks Hashem is punishing him. If we don't get rid of that infection, I can end the class in 2 minutes. Because that's like the major thing. If you think we have to view life as a challenge. If we view life as a challenge, then what do we say? Bring it on. It's challenge. Any challenge is obviously going to give you a reward after. Rabbi Nachman says in Sefer HaMidot that before a person is going to receive a miracle, he's going to go through a test. He's going to go through a test. Life is a series of tests. Get used to it. Get used to it. That should be your mind frame. But if you think Hashem is punishing you and He's out to get you, and this is your view of life, you can be wearing a kippah, you can be Chabad, you can be anything you want. It's just you got it all wrong. And that's where I really focus on core beliefs. Where are the infections in our lives that we think this way? Because this is where the anxiety comes from. Thank God I'm a very calm person because I think whatever happens to me, it's a challenge. It's obviously Hashem wants me to go through this challenge because something is coming out of it, or to build my vessel, or to prepare me for something bigger. This is the number one thing you have to focus on. If you don't have this in your head, that life is a challenge to you, and Hashem is there to make you optimize who you're supposed to be, we can go home at 8:45 and the class is over. Because there's no healing with that mind frame. There's no healing with the mind frame. That's the first question I ask you. Do you think life is a threat, or do you think life is a challenge? A or B? If it's A, okay, now let's get to the issue. If it's B, when you come back and think life is a challenge, then we'll talk about your problem, because otherwise you're wasting time. Thank God my time is very, very valuable. And at the end of the day, if these are the core beliefs, this is why Emunah, Rabbi Nachman says that the main reason a person suffers in this world is because of a lack of Emunah. Whether it be lack of self-confidence, whether it be lack of trust, whether it be lack of anything. It's like literally you think you're living in Gaza, and you're not. You're living in Aventura. You get a phone call, you think the world's upside down. And this is going to destroy us. So again, whatever Hashem's doing for us is for the best. You have to have trust. You have to have trust. You have to go all in. There's certain things in life you have to go all in. This is one of them. Is trusting God and Emunah. When you don't have 100% all in, whatever you don't have, you're going to pay a price for it. All Hashem's asking for a person is trust me. I'm doing everything for the best. That's all He's asking from you. It's not that much. What happens is we make things bigger and bigger. I was also, when I was in situations, I also believed life was a threat. So what happens? I worried. And I stood there worried, complained, and nothing was happening for me. You want to get rid of your worries? Take action. You want to get rid of your fears? Take action towards trust and believing that Hashem is there to help you become who you're supposed to be. Very important. Before we even begin this class, that's the number one thing. Because you can't talk about segulot if there's no belief. If there's no belief, close the book. Nothing to talk about. Okay? Now, Rabbi Nachman has a specific Torah, why people get sick. Why people get sick. Again, this is not in all cases, obviously. I don't want people telling me this is why I got sick. Children are completely different. This is something with Gilgulim. This is something much more complicated, beyond our means to understand. But studies are showing now 75 to 85% of diseases that people go through, they could be healed if they didn't stress or worry. 75 to 85. 70 to 85% of diseases are preventable. So that's negligence. Those are the ones that we're in control of. Those are the ones that we have to focus. And I promise you, your brain over a long period of time with constant stress and constant anxiety, it's going to take effect. I have people that I know that have vertigo. I have people that I know that have all kinds of other symptoms they can't see. They God forbid, they get ringing in their ears. They get this, they get that, and this is all a imbalance due to stress, due to lack of harmony. That's the key. When I always tell people, the thing you're stressing about, it's costing you your health. If it's worth it, okay, continue. If it's not, that's the problem. So Rabbi Nachman says here clearly, why do people get sick? When you fail to focus on the purpose of your life. That's the number one reason why people get sick. When you fail to focus on the tachlis, what am I here for? What am I doing in this world? Am I here in this world to run after money? Am I here in this world to run after my desires? Am I here in this world to be obese? What am I doing in this world? If you don't have a why to live, then you're not going to have a how. If you don't have that why has to be so big that the rest, if you have that big why, everything else is taken care of. But if a person doesn't have the why, if he doesn't have purpose in this world, then he's going to fall into addictions, aggressions, and depression. If you don't have purpose, you're going to get the other three come. There's not one person that comes into rehab that says, you know what, I'm here because I found the purpose of life. I just took some drugs. I have yet to hear that example. They don't come to you like that. They come to you because they're lost in life. They don't see the bigger purpose in life. So what happens when we get sick, God forbid, unfortunately, is when we get sick, our soul says, listen, I can't be in this guy's body anymore. I tried. Let me cut my losses. Let me go up for a second round for another person. This body's killing me. All day long, he wants this. All day long, he wants money. All day long, he's dealing with this. He's not feeding nothing with his soul. All day long, it's about his ego. Anger every minute. Expectations. If I don't get my expectations, I'm screaming. He doesn't forgive anybody. All day long about me. The soul says, what am I here for? Goodbye. So what happens? The soul starts little by little departing from the body. And that's when the person feels the sickness. What is sickness? When your soul departs from the body. And then the person sees, wow, when he sees that this person is not carrying out his will, she becomes filled with yearning to go back to the source. And she prepares to leave the body. It's almost like you're on a bad date, that you can't wait to get out of there. It's like, come on, when am I getting out of this date? I know nothing's happening with this date. There's never going to be a solution to this date. I'm in a bad date. That's what your soul says. I got pumped. I'm in a bad date. I got to go back. I'm wasting my time here. So what happens? As a result, the person becomes sick, and the power of the soul is weakened, owing to the fact that she's trying to withdraw from the body to carry out her desire, but the soul only wishes to carry out God's will. So if you really realize, people ask me, why should I thank God that I'm sick? A very common question. Why should I thank God that I'm sick? You know why you should thank God that you're sick? Because now your soul is going to finally get a little bit of sustenance. It's like you are on a train ride, you went the wrong direction, and God created a miracle that the train broke, so you would figure out you were going down the wrong direction. And now you can realize, whoa, by the way, we're going in the wrong direction. Let's go in the right direction. That's what happens when you, God forbid, a person's sick. He's supposed to sit there, and he's supposed to look at life, and he's supposed to evaluate, and make sure he's not running for nothing. So what does he say here? When the person, now what happens? The reason the person's soul comes back to him, person's health comes back to him, through taking medicines, is the soul sees, wow, this guy, he's been in bed for a week. He hasn't taken any food. He hasn't looked at his desires. He hasn't thought about money all day long. All he wants to do is get better. So the soul sees, maybe I do have a chance with this guy. Maybe I do have a chance. So the soul comes back to the person, and the person gets health. So basically, all healing comes in your soul state. It doesn't come in your ego state. In your ego is the source of pain, is the cause of pain. The soul is the cause of healing. So we have to be mindful. Is this worth my health? Is not getting along with this person worth my health? And this is something we have to look at. We have to see, well, what's the bigger purpose? So what happens here is if you have a why, if you're a person, the more he's going to go into his soul state, the more he's going to be forgiving, the more he's going to look at the greater purpose of life, the more he's going to be focused on growing and giving and being in gratitude, then that's when healing comes to the person. The more a person goes through aggression, depression, or addiction, then the soul says, okay, the date's over. And that's what happens. So a person trying to heal somebody without realizing that the soul is the one that needs the healing, it's really a waste of time. It's a waste of time. That's why I try to tell people. And it's very simple. It's not a complicated process. It's very simple. Whatever you're doing towards the soul, you're going towards healing. Whatever you're doing towards your body, towards your desires, you're going towards sickness. Very simple. You're either +1 or -1 at all times. It all depends on what you want. Do you want healing or do you want to be right? Do you want to be in love or do you want to be right? Can't have both. These are decisions that we make. These are decisions that we have to make and we have to understand. So really sicknesses are a blessing from God because they make you stop. And they say, listen, time out. I'm giving you a favor. See what you're doing. Make sure you check yourself. And if you check yourself and everything's go bad, go. Then you have your new high. And that's why stress and all that is really a lack of trust in God. It's a lack of trust in God. It's an imbalance of the elements. It's a lack of trust. When you have this lack of trust, you're always anxious. You're always depressed. You can't have. I told people you can't have gratitude if you're not present. Very simple. Very simple. How could you have gratitude if you're not present? If I'm focused on the future, I can't have gratitude. I'm worried about the future. If I'm depressed, I'm thinking about the past. I can't have gratitude, and gratitude heals. And the other two states make you sick. So think about it. Do I want to be sick or do I want to have gratitude? You can't have both. It's just you can't. Even bipolar people can't have both. You just can't have both. We just have to take this whole big game and bring it to simplicity. What happens is everything's getting complicated. We just have to go back to basics. Go back to simplicity. This is the way God created you. So understanding that worry, the doctors have said, worry, 75% of all patients that come to physicians could cure themselves if they stop their fears and worried. There's even a thing called the Nocebo Effect. We'll talk about the placebo effect, but there's the thing called the Nocebo Effect. People, God forbid, people were given cancer medicine that was just sugar. They were Tic Tacs. And in the label it says we'll lose hair, we'll start vomiting. All of a sudden these people, they did a test and look it up, the Nocebo Effect. All of a sudden they took a Tic Tac, they took a sugar pill, and they started losing hair. And they started almost throwing up because they believed that was going to cause that. And so it works both ways. It works both ways. Placebo or nocebo. It works both ways. So we have to get our grip on our brain. We have to get our grip on our brain, and we have to understand this is the key. Remember, we're not living in Gaza. You have no reason to be threatened all the time. But your perceptions are threatened. All books on psychology show the amount of stress that we go through today is what our ancestors went through in 1 year. 1 year compared to what we do in 1 week today. You're 52 times more stressed than our ancestors did. So your body can't handle healing and stress at the same time. You can't handle it. It's physically impossible. You can't. Why? Because your immune system is fighting against yourself. So, Rabbi Nachman says here clearly that the more you get into your purpose in life, the more you'll be healed. Because when you're in your purpose of life, you're calm. You have calm confidence. When you don't have your purpose in life, you're anxious, you're chasing this, you're chasing my media, you're chasing this guy's money, how come this guy has it, I don't have, all this extra garbage that at the end of the day, it leads to zero, nothing. That's something we have to think about. That's one thing that helped me when I started, healing, when I started losing weight, everything healed, because the mind was healed. Okay? So what does Rabbi Nachman say here? Lesson 250. He says something, Lesson 250, that the main reason why people suffer is because of lack of doubt. Lack of dot. What does lack of dot mean? Dot means knowledge. Dot means a person's intellect, his wisdom. It's lacking. Anytime a person is suffering is due to a lack of wisdom. Very simple. So what do we have to do? We have to get wisdom. Whatever you're doing is because you're lacking a specific interpretation or acknowledgement of God at that particular place. For example, many times we sin, we all sin. So God says, you know what? You sinned. I'm just going to hit you with a $5,000 fee. You're going to get a $5,000, your deal's not going to fall through. So what happens? When we resist this, when we complain about the $5,000, then it becomes what? $20,000. Then it becomes health. Do you understand how it works? The initial deal that God gives you, you should say, I'll take it. I'll take the deal. Whatever the deal is, I'll take it. Because what happens is, everybody gets pain. You can't avoid pain. But what happens is suffering is a result of pain times resistance equals suffering. The amount of resistance you give pain, that's when suffering comes. You don't have to suffer. Pain? Yes, that's coming to you. Everybody has to have pain. But if you resist pain by not accepting the pain, what happens? You get extra suffering. How do we know this? For the example last week, the parsha of the week, the Torah. First, the leprosy went where? It went on the material goods. It went on the walls of the house. Person didn't get it. What happened? Where did it go? It went to the guy's skin. It went to the guy's clothes. Didn't get it? Now it's going to go to your skin. You understand? So the amount of flesh, the amount of resistance that we give to pain, that's what's causing the suffering. If somebody hurts you and you let it go, that's it. Party's over. Let's move on. How could you do this to me? Ba 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 ba. There's the suffering, there's the rummaging, and there's where the immune system goes wrong. You understand? So we don't want to sit there and resist. We have to accept. Get into the acceptance business. Resisting business equals suffering. Very simple. So think about what you did in your life, where you resisted. That's the amount of suffering you had. The minute you said, thank you, Hashem, I accept this money, thank God it's not my health, thank God it's not my kids' health, but the minute you get stressed and you get, God forbid, suppressed emotions, and God forbid these things, then it becomes not just a small cavity, but it becomes a root canal. And then the root canal, at the end of the day, they got to yank your teeth out. Because it's been a small cavity. So you have to get into the habit of accepting whatever happens to you and say, thank you, I will take the first deal all the time. Don't complain about the first deal. Take the first deal all the time. The less complaining a person has, the quicker he's out of the problem. Like I said, you have to manage your states. If we can't manage our states, if we're out of control, we don't manage, you wake up at 7 o'clock, well, what happened to my day? That we can't live like that. That's not success. That's out of control. Not out of time, out of control. We want to be in control. We want to be in control at all times. When you're in control of what you're thinking about, that's when you can change your states. You're going to hear some amazing things that Rabbi Nachman speaks about what happens when a person changes his states. His pulse changes. And through the pulse changing, that's when healing comes. Healing comes when a person does something. It just doesn't come to you, automatically. You have to create an arousal. We are created to have an arousal down here, and then an arousal above comes. We have to be careful. The Rambam, Rabbi Nachman, is you have to be careful to use your merits in Shemayim. Why? Because you can't put yourself in a dangerous situation. A lot of people say, you know what, I learned Torah, I can eat what I want. You can't, every time a person gets saved from a sickness, it takes away from his credits. We cannot be put in situations that all of a sudden you rely on miracles or doctors to heal you. You want to get in you want to be preventative. You want to have as much preventative medicine as possible. The Rambam said, if a person cared for himself, the way he cares for his horse, imagine you had a winning horse. Would you overfeed him? Would you give him GMOs? Would you give him Snickers bars before a race? Would you give him, would you give him M&Ms before a race? No, you wouldn't do that. So you're doing the same thing to you. He says if he would avoid many serious illnesses. You won't find anybody who will give his horse too much food. He measures exactly what the horse can tolerate, but he himself, the person eats, the jockey eats whatever he wants, but the horse, he makes sure he doesn't eat anything. right? He makes sure his animal gets proper exercise to be healthy. He himself, he doesn't exercise. But he makes sure the horse gets it because that's where his money is. Same thing. The Rambam says, very simple. If you cared the way you care for a horse, you would be healthy. If you had a championship horse, think about that example. Again, practicality is the key. If you had a winning horse, you wouldn't feed him what you're eating. I promise you. If you would, you'd be out of business. So that's something we have to understand, that we don't want to put ourselves in a sakana. Rabbi Nachman says that nowadays we spoke about 60%, 90% of your serotonin comes from your food you eat. Comes from the food you eat. So you have to think about it. Maybe I need to change my diet. Studies are showing now, a person can get out of a depression just by changing his diet. Changing his diet, you can get out of a depression. Changing his diet and exercise, you can get out of a depression. Very simple. Why wouldn't you try that before you would try medicines? 60% of Americans right now are on prescription pills. I see people, they get into an accident, nice guy, all of a sudden next thing you know, he's addicted to painkillers the rest of his life. He's a slave to pills. I see it all day long. We have to get accustomed to a little pain. Get accustomed to a little pain. You don't need a pill every time something happens to you. You have to be able, you know what, forget the pill. Let me work on my mind. That's going to help. Why should I need a pill? Every time I get anxious, I need a pill. I need to calm down. Why are you stressed? Because you don't have trust. Why are you stressed? Because you think life is a threat. Why are you stressed? Because you think Hashem's out to attack you. These are the core beliefs. This is the key to everything. Look what the Rambam says. That before a physician should make every effort to strengthen the patient's vitality and nourishing food to strengthen his spiritual powers. Get the guy in a mood of healing. Get the guy in happiness, the Rambam says. Don't just give him medicine. He says, the physician should make every effort to see that everyone's sick, healthy life should be always cheerful, and he should seek to relieve the spiritual and psychological forces that cause anxiety before you give medicine. The Rambam says, don't give him medicine until you can clear his mind. Then you can give him the medicine. Don't do that before he's telling you here. The first principle is in curing any patient, especially if his illness is bound upon his mind and emotions, 99% of people today, okay? In this case, who are gloomy and depressed, should do nothing more, don't administer any medicine until you change their mind frame. That's the first thing you should focus on. Changing his toxic, infectious beliefs. First thing I do in people in addiction, we can't talk about addiction until we get rid of what's causing you to be addicted. What's the belief? What's the infection? Where is the infection in your life? Is it because you think this one got... What's your infection? What's the person's infection that's making him out of control? That's what we have to work on. That's why Emunah is the key to everything. Person has trust in God. He understands that, I'm just shaking for no reason. It's like we said that it's like the guy who goes into the doctor, I need more spray. My leaves are brown again. Here you go, take the spray. Come back in 30 days to get more spray. Why are the leaves turning brown every minute? Because the roots are not good. What do you have to do? Water the plants, not spray them with green paint. What's that going to do? How foolish is that? It's exactly what you do. Exactly what people are doing when they're not getting to the root issue. So the Rambam says, you have to stop and you have to realize that he says, listen to what he says here. This can only achieve the guy's mind frame. You can only heal his mind frame through the guidance of our religious teachings, which we have received from the prophets. The Torah. Bottom line, you want to get healed? The healing's in the Torah. The healing's in everything. You listen to a class, there's the beginning of your healing. That's what happens. But if we don't do this, and we just focus on other people, we rely on doctors, then we fall into chronic illnesses, God forbid. And that's why 60% of Americans are stuck on prescription pills, and usually they don't get off until there's a major identity change, not behavior. Oh, I feel good today, I didn't feel good tomorrow. I feel good today, I don't feel good tomorrow. What is this? You need to make an identity change. That means you have to dig deep and see what is causing this, what is causing this mind frame that I'm having. And if I do have a weak mind frame, what am I doing to fix it? Am I going to classes? Am I going to some kind of therapy? Am I making an attempt, or am I saying I don't have time? So you can't have pity on this person who does not have pity for themselves. Number one thing. Can you have pity on a person who has no pity for themselves? No, you can't have them. So when you guys are coming to a class, you're getting dat. When you have dat, you don't suffer. Because now you're going to go before you're going to take a pill. What's the cause of this illness, God forbid? Is it for something? What is it? Maybe my stress. Maybe, you know why I'm stressed? Maybe because all day long I'm focusing on my ex-husband that left me. The past is past. I'm focusing on this person that took money from me. The past is the past. That's it. It's finished. Movie's over. Start a new chapter. We have to start making stories. We have to make chapter. This chapter changed. Let's move on to a new chapter. The Rambam says that the key to anything, Rabbi Nachman says, that you will not have, if a person doesn't have a settled mind, he will never know God. He will never know God. What are you talking about? It looks like he knows God. He's got a beard, he's got a hat, he's kosher, but he's complaining all the time. He can't control his emotions. He's yelling at everybody. I hear people that the guy says the wrong word in the Torah, and he starts screaming at the guy in the middle of public, like it's a flea market. So what? He made a mistake. Correct him. Screaming because you're right. But you missed the whole thing. If you put the Torah on top of a donkey, it doesn't mean the guy's knowledgeable. Put a Torah on top of a donkey. Midot, person's midot are number one. If you don't have midot, if you don't have the right characters, you can go to 10 shuls, you can go to this, you don't have midot, you don't have nothing. You have zero. That's what Rabbi Nachman says. Let's work on the midot first. You don't have the midot, you don't have the character, then the Torah becomes ugly. And the person makes the Torah ugly. And then people see that, and they say, why do I want to be religious? Look at this guy. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening today. The Torah is the greatest thing ever invented. The Torah is the healer. But unfortunately, if we have the Torah without the midot, then we have nothing. And that's why Breslev focuses on so much on working on your desires, your characteristics, your shadows, that's causing a person not to see Hashem, not to, because generally you should be happy. You shouldn't be depressed. If you're living with purpose, you shouldn't nobody should tell you wake up in the morning. You should be up, crack of dawn. But if you don't live with purpose, then you're dealing with the fight, and the inner fight between whether you really believe it's working or not. Why a person doesn't do his bodhidut? Because he doesn't really believe it works. He's not so into it because maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. This guy Gedale says it works. I should try it. It looks like it works for him. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I shouldn't try it. And that back and forth tennis match, spiritual tennis match, is a lot of time. Why don't you just open up your mouth and try to create a relationship? So this is, again, simplicity. I don't believe in anything more but simplicity. We've lost it. Simplicity is a lost art. It's a lost art. Nothing simple than having a a conversation with God. It's like a lost art now. Maybe you find one guy doing it. It's everybody should be doing it. Even the placebo effect, Rabbi Nachman speaks about the placebo effect, how a person is Emunah. They showed the placebo effect, showing that depending on the person's belief, that means for example, if a pill was red instead of white, the person believed it was more effective than the white. If it was green, depending on even the bigger pills that people thought they were, so clearly when a person realizes he's getting healed, all of a sudden his body starts healing. His body starts thinking that the pill is going to work. So the first really thing is Emunah. If you don't teach Emunah to people, then nothing works. We're going to talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about the pulse. Everything's in the pulse. Okay? Let's talk about the pulse. The pulse, you should know that the gematria for the pulse is Hashem's name 184, which means dofek, which means a pulse. Every illness that we have in our body, it starts on the pulse. That's where Rabbi Nachman says that most illnesses are due to unhappiness, and the greatest healer is joy. What do you mean most illnesses are due to unhappiness, and the greatest healer is joy? Because you have to understand that in order for healing to come, there has to be harmony, there has to be peace. If you understand, in order for me to have peace, I have to have health, I have to have peace. I can't be healthy and be wound up. It's not going to work, because there has to be harmony among the elements. Even the Chinese medicine, it's all about the yin-yang, it's all about the harmony, it's all about everything working in harmony, the four elements being in line. When we don't have harmony, that's when sicknesses come. What causes lack of harmony? When, for example, a person if he's an air sign, he's a very egotistical person. So his air, his talking a lot, causes an imbalance in the air, and that causes an imbalance in the elements. For example, a guy who's prone to fire, right? If he's angry, we know after a person gets angry, what happens? He releases cortisol. Prolong over time, that creates sicknesses. So anytime you have an imbalance, a water sign would be a person indulging in too much food, too much sex, too much money. So what happens? The stress of him not meeting his expectations gets him to be sick. The last one is dirt, depression. Depression is dirt. If a person is generally drawn to depression, he's going to get sick because there's an imbalance. Our job is to keep balance throughout the elements. That's when healing comes, when there's balance. As long as there's an imbalance, you can't have peace and you can't have harmony. So what's the amazing thing about this is if we look at the 10 Sfirot in Kabbalah, we know we have the 10 Sfirot, Chachma, Bina, Dat, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod. These are the 10 Sfirot in Kabbalah. That these Sfirot, basically, whatever particular state the guy's in right now, that's the dominant Sfirah, that he has. You understand? For example, somebody took Rabbi Nachman's post one time, and all of a sudden they took it in 10 minutes. It changed. In another 10 minutes, it completely changed. Rabbi Nachman was able to restart himself so much that every minute was a brand new day for him. So what happens the minute a person restarts, his pulse changes. Because in order to restart, we take the word keter. Keter is the highest light. So through our pulse, we have to realize that in order for healing to come, and the reason why there's sickness is because there's a flaw in the pulse. The flaw in the pulse is one of the 10 sfirot that we have a problem in. Let's talk about them, for example. Let's say a person is very angry. He gets angry. All of a sudden, that comes from what? Gevura. Gevura means anger. He has a flaw in the Gevura. The flaw in the Gevura causes an imbalance in the bloodstream, and that causes the person to get sick. How does he do it? He has to change. He has to change his state. How would you change your state if you're angry? All of a sudden, you apologize. Or you make teshuvah. Next thing you know, you have bina. You have a teshuvah pulse on you. Or for example, anything that a person does to change his pulse, he has to change his state constantly. That means you can't say, I'm having a bad day, and expect to feel good. You need to figure out why you're having a bad day. You need to figure out where you need to change your state. And then your pulse rate changes, and then all of a sudden, you feel much better. If a person's having a bad day, all of a sudden he gives tzedakah to somebody, next thing you know, his pulse rate changes his body, and that could bring healing. Because now, instead of before, the pulse rate being anger, now the pulse rate that's dominant is chesed. And that one will offset the anger. So we're able to constantly change our pulse rate. That's causing us sick. When you don't feel good, it's because something happened. You got stuck on something. Could be, for example, if a person has an ingratitude problem. What happens? Your expectations didn't come in, you get depressed. Right? So what do you have to do to get out of that state? Turn your expectations into appreciation. When you do that, you go from what? A person would go from, he would change the hod, instead of ungratefulness to gratefulness. So we're able to constantly not have bad days. We can have bad hours or bad minutes. But when you have a bad day, it's because you just stayed in that state the whole day. That's a problem. Because if you continue to have that, then that's the dominating sphera in the pulse rate that gets you depressed. Because there's a flaw in the pulse rate. Understand that. So that's why the Tikkun HaKlali, when we say the Tikkun HaKlali every day, which I've been telling everybody, screaming to everybody about, what happens when you do the Tikkun HaKlali? You get a new pulse rate. You do a general remedy. It's like a flush. You took the whole flush, brand new person. That's why it's called a general remedy. For men, women, etc. When a person sins sexually, he creates a pigam, he creates a flaw in yesod. What happens? That's the dominating pulse at the time, and that causes an irregularity in the four elements. Because, for example, if a guy is drawn after his lust, then the water sign, the four pulses, becomes lower, and that's the cause of the imbalance. It's very simple. It's all about harmony. We want harmony. Too much of anything is not good. Just the right thing is perfect. So if there's something wrong with you, you feel off. Why do I feel off? Change it. Figure out why. You understand? If you're worried, what do? It's a problem in Emunah. That's malchut. So what do? Fix the Emunah. You understand? That's what we have to be a master of. We have to be a master of controlling the states that we're in. If you're able to control the states that you're in, you're going to be able to not allow sicknesses to be chronic. Once the problem becomes chronic suppressed emotions, God forbid, leads to cancer. But if it's just a little bit, okay, you got upset. Okay, let's move on. But it takes the ego to say, you know what, I'm sorry. It takes the ego to say, you know what, maybe I overreacted. It's very tough. You need to break your ego. The more you break your ego, the more Hashem's with you. The more ego you have, the more Hashem says, I'll come back later when you want to sit there and humble yourself. Only through humility can you actually have a message from God. If you're not in a humility state, you're never going to get any kind of real answers. So now we know healing is something that's in our control. So if it's in your control, if you're sick, it's negligence. If it's negligence, then what happens? You're putting yourself in a dangerous situation. And clearly when a person puts himself in a dangerous situation, then they recall his sins. We don't want that. Especially if it's over stupidity. Especially if people are fighting over sandwiches. People are fighting over money. People are fighting over the stupidest little things in the world. Okay, so you got knocked out on a sandwich. You got knocked out on stupidity. So what happens? You're complaining, and that just brings more and more dinim. That's why the Arizal says, according to the Ari, our behavior in this world has an influence on every kind of vitality that flows into our soul and body, and a channel that flows in vitality for goodness. So just like the word yud is chachma, is intelligence, is wisdom. If it's not used properly, yud, the opposite of the yud means davoy, sick. Very simple. The same yud that you need for intelligence, if it's used the other way, it becomes the word davoy, means sick. So what do you need to do? Switch the letters. But you got to be mindful for that. Again, back to the mindfulness, back to the self-control, back to the same things that we need to master. Master mindfulness. What happened to me? I don't know how I got here. Did Uber picked you up? How'd you get here? You have to know where you're going. You have to know where you're going. You have to know, why am I getting sick? Why am I upset? Why don't I have any energy? So the first thing is we need to do is we need to realize that that's why we get sick. We get sick only because we're not living with purpose. You want Shalom Bayit. When your person has Shalom Bayit, that means Hashem is with him. Because that means he's able to be a giver. But if a guy doesn't want to be a giver, then he needs to be a taker. He doesn't have Shalom Bayit. And then Hashem removes himself from a place where there's no Shalom Bayit. Is it worth the fight to have God remove himself from the house? You know, when he removes himself from the house, then there comes money problems, then there comes lust, then there comes health problems. This is what happens. We want to keep Hashem in the house. So if you're a man, if you're intelligent, you be very careful that the key is to make your wife happy. How do you make your wife happy? You have to honor her. You have to honor her. When you honor her, God honors you. It's like you're honoring Hashem. You have to think about these things. If not, you want to be right, you want to do this, then you're going to be sick. And you're going to be called all your friends, oh, my wife's terrible, blah, blah, blah. No, you weren't in control. You weren't in control. And that's what we want to get everybody to understand, that whatever they think they're fighting about, it's not really worth it. It's not really worth it. It's not really worth it. The more we are in our soul state, the more healing comes. Remember, all healing comes in your soul state. Soul state means giving. Soul state means we, so not me. Soul state means anything I'm doing in my soul state, because I have to cure my soul first. Then I have healing. Anything I do in my ego state, where I'm angry, I have aggression, further sickness coming. And that's the problem. So we have to understand, we want our soul to be back. We don't want to be sick. The key in life is to lengthen your life, not to shorten your life, God forbid. So the ego, a person who's very impatient, will always focus on, oh, why is this taking so long? How long do I have to wait? He's very impatient. He's always focusing on impatientness. So the ego is the cause of the pain, and the soul is the cause of the healing. The ego seeks wisdom. The soul is wisdom. So this is what we have to understand. Okay? So let's talk about the big topic tonight, which is Emunah. So Rabbi Nachman says here, is one of his famous Torahs here, that he says that unfortunately, if a person has a blemish in faith, he says something, he says, medicines are not going to help you, prayer is not going to help you, not even marriage from your grandfather is going to help you. When a person has a blemish in faith, you know why? Because even when he prays, right? What happens when he prays? He only has 3 elements. He has fire from the speech, he has water, right? And he has air. He's missing what? The dirt. The dirt is the Emunah. So Rabbi Nachman says here, beautiful Torah, you're going to hear this. He's saying here, when a person has a blemish in faith, right? None of these happen, and this is the main reason why a person has afflictions in his life, God forbid. This is the number one reason why he has it. So look what he says. He's saying here, why won't medicine work when a person doesn't have faith? It's because in order for a person to have medicine, the medicine is controlled by faith. That means medicine does not grow unless there's rain. And rain only comes through faith. That means you need plants to grow. Without faith, there's no rain. Without rain, the plants are not growing. So you can't that won't even help you. So without, what he says here, for one thing, our faith and our prayers to God are preconditions for rain to come down. Praying and having faith is two different stories. He's going to give us a solution here. So now what he's saying here, the main person, so why wouldn't a marriage of his father go up? Because that's also dependent on faith. Why, if he cries out, again, if it's crying like a baby and crying out for no reason, crying out because you're a victim, that's not going to help you. What is the solution for us to do? He's saying here, when a person has collapse in faith, the only thing a person to do is to dig down deep into his heart. It's almost like you have a waterfall underneath your house, and you have to dig down so deep until you finally hit the water spigot. Once you hit the water spring, boom, all the water shoots out. That's what he's saying here. Without a person digging down into his heart, digging down, crying from his heart to realize, why don't I have faith? Because you know why? I had a friend of mine who spoke today. He realized it's very simple. The reason why I thought I had faith, I didn't really have faith, because I think that Hashem is always trying to get me. That was his lack of faith. Even though he was praying, nothing was happening, because his belief didn't match his prayer. So what do you have to do? He's telling us here, you have to dig down until we find the waters, until they nurture faith. You have to dig down deep. The deeper you dig, the more the water comes out. How do we do this? We need to seclude ourselves and really, really, really work on ourselves. Once you do this, this is where everything shines for you. This is where you hit the spigot, and all of a sudden you hit like an oil rush. You need to hit your spiritual oil rush, or your spiritual spring is only digging down deep. How do you dig down deep? You have to evaluate yourself. You almost have to, I would say, look at yourself as a third person. Take a video of yourself and see how you react or you respond to things in life. And see if you have faith or not. But there's no other way, he's saying here. Just praying without faith, it's useless because you don't really believe in it. You still have doubts. You understand? I could be in Aventura, but if I'm believing that I'm in Gaza, then I'm going to be shaking. So he's saying here, very simple. If a person, he gives us a promise, Rabbi Nachman, lesson 259. Look what he's telling you here. He's basically giving you an open book test. When a person secludes himself and speaks his peace with his Creator, and confesses and tells him where he's staying, that he's begging God for Emunah. God, I need Emunah. I have no chance on my own. I don't even know where to start. When he speaks the truth, and he speaks honestly, and says, you know what, I don't have faith. What happens to this person? He says the Shekhinah comes to him when he's humble, and he realizes where he's holding. This is because every blemish, when a person's in exile, Hashem is also in exile. Believe it or not. As many people think that Hashem is trying to punish them, it's not. When you're in exile, when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, Hashem is also in exile. When you're living what you're supposed to be living, Hashem is the one pushing you and He's happy for you. It's not against you. People have this belief of craziness. Sometimes they're doing good and they want to sabotage themselves, saying, how long is this going to last? Like, you're missing the whole system. You're missing the whole system. Hashem wants you to be successful. He wants you to thrive. He doesn't want you to lose. So what is he saying here? He says this is because every blemish that a person makes. So what happens? When a person does this, Hashem will console you and He will give you strategies to correct all your blemishes. You have an open book test. Here you go. All you have to do is start building a relationship with God, and He's going to give you an open book test. And He's going to tell you, here's the answer. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do to heal your problem so you can get healed. I don't want an open book test. I don't have time to take an open book test. Okay. There's not too much to talk about here. There's not too much to talk about. So this is what we need to do. We need to, he's saying here, just because how do we go dig down deep? We have to dig down deep because all the rewards are when you dig down deep. When you hit that waterfall, you have to say, Hashem, I know there's that waterfall in my life that spring that I need to pop. And once you pop that spring, your whole life just becomes brand new. So what do we need to do? We need to spend a lot of time digging. You need to spend a lot of time digging and not spend time pointing. Pointing, people do now. Boing. His fault, that fault, my ex did this to me, my husband did this to me. But what are you doing down deep? What are you doing for yourself? Have mercy on yourself by digging down deep. That's what he's telling us. There's no other way he's telling us. Because this gives us the element of dirt. Once we have the element of dirt, we have harmony. Otherwise, we have three elements. Because a person complains, like I said before, when a person prays with complaints, not only does his prayer not get answered, but it gets audited and it gets worse. And what's happening? Why'd you make me sick, Hashem? Why'd you make me sick? Why'd you do this to me? Why'd you take my girlfriend away from me? Why'd you take this away from me? What a foolish person is that? He didn't do anything to you. You did it to yourself. But the good thing is, like Rabbi Nachman says, be a professional at renewing yourself. When you renew yourself every single day, all of a sudden you hit jackpots. I'm going to tell you something. There's no easy way here. There's no pill to you to take to make you happy. There's nothing to make you happy but hard work, effort, and the truth. There's no segulot. I hate to tell you. There's no segulot. I've tried them all. I've visited all the rabbis. At the end of the day, the real gold in life is when you dig down deep. And the more you dig down deep, the more you know yourself, the more you're able to be mindful, and that's where everything comes to you. And that's where everything comes to you. That's why he's telling us here, you have to dig down deep. So when you dig down deep, you realize, no, I don't have trust in God. I clearly see I don't have trust in God. Once you pop that spring, boom, all the water, your whole life is different. I've seen people make this breakthrough. That's called a breakthrough. When you don't do that, you have a breakdown. Either you're making a breakthrough, or you're going to break down. So that's what's happening in this world. So we have to realize that all the rewards, the answer is in you. Do you understand that? The answer is in you. That's why I spend a lot of time in his bodedut. I spend a lot of time, the earlier I can get up in the morning, that's when I'm doing my digging. That's when I'm doing my digging. The more you dig, the more, that's why you get these classes. These classes come from digging. Hashem, what do I need to talk about? What's the topic of the day? What should I talk about? Let's talk about this today. Let's talk about that. The more you dig, the more water comes out, then the water flows throughout your whole life. And that's the reward in life. That's the only way to do it. Now, sometimes people isolate themselves in the Malaysia. You don't need to isolate anywhere. All the rewards are here. Remember, the answer is in you. Not him, not her, it's in you. It's your gut, it's your soul talking to you. So get into your soul state. All right? That's today's class.